When did the notion come to you to get into sports performance coaching?
When I was 18 years old, became an electrician, worked as an electrician for 6 years, actually.
I'm still working on getting the front split, man. I want to get a front split.
Yeah.
I'm far from it.
I stumbled across them at the right time for me, for what I needed. There's no perfect system, right? They're all lacking. They all have purpose.
Do you think that it is net neutral for high-level athletes to be performing Olympic lifting?
I'm trying to take the best on planet Earth and combine it into what we offer. There's no full body range movements here. There's nothing explosive about it. It's just hulking the weight up by whatever means necessary.
I am joined today by Wade Houchin, owner and operator of 289 Sports Performance in Celina, Texas, just north of Dallas. Wade and his wife, Kiera, have founded 289 Sports Performance in 2020 and have been overthrowing the status quo with their unique training philosophy, which we will get into. Wade and his wife are both ATG-certified coaches. Wade holds the level 2 certification and Kiera holds the level 1 certification. And this is how we met through Ben Patrick's ATG for Coaches community. I am honored to dive into Wade's story with all of you as we explore his journey, how he came into coaching, and then we talk about the business models that he's currently using to deliver health and wellness to his clients. So Wade, thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here. Ready to get going.
Awesome. So Wade, I'd like to go back to the beginning of your story. I want to hear where you grew up and when sports first came into your life.
Yeah, I'm from a small town in the state of Nebraska called Gothenburg, about 4,000 people. When I was 18 years old, became an electrician, worked as an electrician for 6 years, actually. I had a child my senior year of high school, so I kind of just went to work, and the things that I felt like I was probably wanting to do got changed really quick from that. So became a very young dad and just embraced that, I guess, and went to do what I needed to do with that. But sports have always been kind of the center of my life. I jokingly say I probably didn't have a career path because it was all sports or nothing, so I didn't really have much of an interest in doing anything that didn't involve a ball of some kind, right? So instead of learning how to change the oil or something or help my dad with something, I'd rather just go throw a ball around and shoot hoops. From a small town. I'm old enough to remember the good old days where seasons didn't interlap and you could play 4 sports year round and they didn't really interfere with each other. I think it was better days and better times as far as that, just more of a pure, it was football and then it was a couple of weeks off and then basketball and then you got into track, and we were a small enough town where baseball was a summer thing. Pleasantville memories of, baseball in summertime with your buddies and going to this local swimming pool and just being a kid, that was better days in the early and mid 90s. So
Nice. Yeah. Very idyllic. Growing up in Nebraska, was your family into farming at all?
Yeah, my grandpa was a corn soybean farmer, so he lived a mile or two outside of town. So I spent a lot of time riding ATVs and helping him drive tractors and do those things and lay irrigation pipe for his cornfields and get yelled at for not doing it right and things like that. So, probably begrudgingly. And, grandma was very kind and spoiled us and, would pay us $20 to mow our yard, and
There you go.
grandpa never knew about it. And she'd always be slipping us a few bills under the table for not doing any work. So it was great though. Yeah, it was good. I think you just pick up some good Midwestern work ethic surrounded by people that work hard in your family. My dad's been in flooring and carpet and tile and had his own business most of his own life. So I think I just watched people work hard around me. And I think you do absorb some of that just based on your upbringing. So.
Absolutely. You were an electrician coming out of high school. When did the notion come to you to get into sports performance coaching?
Yeah, I went through a divorce when I was only 21. So I was married at 18 and then I ended up, just, I guess, newfound freedoms, right? Like first time in my adult life, I felt like I had a choice on what to do, and ended up considering a few different things and just kind of cold turkey quit my electrical job, which was very well paying. And I'd already bought in a house when I was, I think, 21 or 22, and just went to college as a 24-year-old freshman. And, playing college football was always a dream of mine. So, I jokingly but seriously submitted VHS tape from 1998 highlight tape to a to a college coach down the road, and this would have been 2006, and got a little bit of scholarship money and ended up being able to check that box. So I was
That's
kind of
awesome.
one of those older guys on the team, catch a lot of slack, but I ended up playing quite a bit, so they couldn't say a whole lot. So, um, well, yeah, it was a woulda, coulda, shoulda is what I call it. Something I could still. It didn't make sense to a lot of people, especially my family. Family wants to protect you and do the safe thing a lot of the times. And are you sure this is what you want to do? You have a family and this, that, and like, yeah, I'm well aware of what I have in my house. Thank you very much. So,
Right. Yeah.
but I was just getting remarried my freshman year of college there. So Kira has been with me through that whole journey and navigating, running my son around, and we were having our own children while I was in college. So this definitely not the typical, this is what I plan to do with my life. So yeah, the time I got out of college and was student teaching, we had our fourth. So we had all those kiddos while we were full-time college, full-time, athlete and doing crazy stuff.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think it was like a business trip for me. It wasn't to go have fun and party and enjoy that. I didn't even live in the same town that I went to college in, so I commuted every day and get up early and go to workouts and go to class and go to practice and come back home and try to be a dad for a couple minutes and
Yeah.
wake up and do it all over again. So
Was this at UNL?
now at Concordia
Okay. Okay.
University. Yeah,
Concordia. Got it.
so yeah.
Okay. When you were there, were you studying kinesiology or some form of athletic training?
No, I was in the education program, so I
Got it.
was I was teaching and kind of a minor in religion, so I could teach at a private school, that type of thing, if that opportunity presented itself. But yeah, I didn't graduated with a BA in social science, secondary education, and then went back and got a special education degree. Yeah, I ended up wanting to be a head coach, down the road, and so got a master's in coaching and athletic administration, and then the weight room kind of became a passion for me. And when I kind of got my first head high school job, and that passion for training started to supersede my desire to coach, which was very organic. I would have never had thought that would be the case ever, because I just football my whole life. So I ended up getting a master's in exercise science after that, because that's the game you play when you're in education. You feel like, oh, I got to get this degree
Got to
now, I
get
gotta
more.
get this degree, and then mountains of student loan debt later. Here you are with a couple pieces of paper. So yeah.
Yeah, let's see. So BA, secondary education, Concordia University, special education, also Concordia, masters. I'm reading your bio
Oh yeah,
on,
gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, on your website, coaching athletic administration from Concordia, and then master's exercise science from Concordia as well. But then I also see Irvine. Did you have to fly out to California at all to
No,
complete
both of
those?
my masters were at Irvine. They were online, so I
Okay,
just
got it.
plowed away through those. Yeah, while we just kept working and doing that stuff. So yeah.
So coming directly out of your undergrad, did you go straight into a high school coaching and teaching environment, and then you were completing your master's concurrent with that? So while you were coaching, you're doing your master's online?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. When did you come across ATG, and when did you set up your entrepreneurial venture?
It would have been after college, so I would say probably 2012. I would say I got into it. I found Keegan Smith first, and he was running a company called Real Movement,
Okay.
and he's kind of the founder of ATG for Coaches. At that point, he was running his own business. He's a pretty savvy business guy, and he starts a business and makes sure it's going to have cash flow coming in, and he kind of jumps onto something else and repeats the cycle. But him and a guy named Lucas Aaron, who runs Range of Strength, I think right now is kind of his tag. He was kind of an original guy too in that movement. Wasn't long after that, I kind of discovered Ben's ATG stuff, and so I was paying Keegan for his monthly thing. I was paying Ben for his monthly thing, and I say, like, this was back when Ben was still answering all the DMs himself, right? This was pre-Rogan, this was pre-ATG for Coaches. I went to some of the gatherings over the years with the ATG community, and they call me one of the OGs because I was around for basically the beginning of everything. Did
Yeah.
certification process that doesn't even exist anymore, and things like that. So I was able to, I think, grow with the company and learn that philosophy, and then just kind of add it to my repertoire, right? So it's one of those things where, I mean, I did every program by the book, and I think, to its credit, I was feeling better than I ever had. I was beat up, bench press, back squat, hang clean, meathead in college and just in chasing weights, and my body was trashed. And
Yeah.
it's kind of surprising just jumping into, I think, a lot of common sense things, but we don't apply a lot of common sense in westernized training. So very restorative, and then I'm like, wow, I can move better. I feel better. I had things to chase because there was always the standards and things like that. So it was a very refreshing, I think, way to get out of that kind of that chasing weights, powerlifting type of westernized strength and conditioning that most of us are brought up in.
100%. I relate to that too. I ran track and field in college and in high school. And luckily in track, it's not just chasing weights, it's really chasing times, right? And I read that Kira also, she's a track coach, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I know and as football, I'm sure a lot of your athletes do track and field as well for speed and explosiveness training. That was the thing that stood out to me about Ben's program as well, was moving the progression, because I'm a competitive person. I'm sure you're an extremely competitive person, and it changed the dimensions of what could be measured from strictly how much are you lifting to how controlled are you under range of motion, and can you safely hit certain standards, whether that's the palms to ground, right? Full
Yeah.
hamstring stretch. I'm still working on getting the front split, man. I want to get a front split.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
far from it, but like it's very inspiring to see. Oh, you can actually build muscle and strength through wide ranges of motion and develop impressive resiliency and
Hmm.
bulletproofness without sacrificing strength. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Oh, 100%. And that's what I was realizing too, is like I was every bit as strong as I wanted to be, not having the desire to, squat 500 plus anymore like I was.
Yeah.
There's a time and a
Like
place for
why?
that. And
It was a time, but yeah, like what utility does it serve at this? You know what
well,
I
I
mean?
got slower every year of college too, and I got
Yeah.
stronger, right? So you start applying some common sense, and you're like, well, it's just a matter of simple mathematics or physics, really. Like if I weigh X amount for my body type and my height and weight, and I'm getting slower, well, something's off, right? I'm prioritizing the wrong things. A day late and a dollar short on that for my own story. So it kind of became a mission to save society from that mindset. I mean, I'm far from anti-strength. It's very
Mhm.
important, especially at the foundational level, right? I'm not really against any movements. I just think there's a lot better ways to achieve the same stimulus, and that's really what we're after right now in our facility is stimulus, application of force absorption, right? Like what do athletes what's required of them in their sport, right? And then
Mhm.
let's be honest, most of the high schools are still very old school, so they're checking those other boxes anyway. Not that we don't squat, but we kind of do things differently. Not that we don't work chest or pressing motions, but we're not climbing under a bench hardly ever unless it's an isometric or something like that. But
I want to dig in deeper into how your training methodology differs from the status quo. But before doing that, I'm just curious, where did you discover Ben and Keegan back in those days? Was it YouTube? Was it Instagram? Like
gosh, it had to be Instagram. I don't know where else it would have been. I've been asked that a lot, and I don't even know. I don't have a like, oh wow, there it is moment.
yeah.
I think I stumbled across them at the right time for me for what I needed. I think I became an expert in their systems. To the point where the use case for me is as far as the value piece. It's like it's not an insult or anything, but the program is what it is, right? You learn something. Nobody's got it all figured out.
Mhm.
So I think for me it was just a natural maturation, and I was into that world. I think as much as anybody was. They're great people. They continue to treat me well, but for me it was a lot more. I kind of lost some luster personally when it became so big that it didn't feel like that family anymore, right? And then,
Mhm.
but that's a natural progression of it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I approached it like anything else, right? When I found that, I'm gonna okay, this works. I need to learn this, study it, and then not necessarily what's next or what's better, but like I said, I don't think Louis Simmons' program was complete. I don't think any of these guys, maybe apart from reading Super Training, and if you actually could decode that whole giant bible of strength training and put it into practice, then I don't think anybody really is. There's no perfect system, right? They're all lacking. They all have purpose. And I don't think Ben, even knowing him for better part of, shoot, man, 10 years probably now, that he would even disagree, to a
Yeah.
certain extent. Like, this is why we created this, what we created it for, this is what we do. We're dogmatic about how we do things because we've seen it, work time in and time out. So I'm just a learner, I guess. And I want to know, from your world, I want to know who's doing the best speed work, right? Who are the best track coaches, So I'm a Feed the Cats, Tony Holler nerd, I'm Jonas Dodo and Brian Kula and people that do speed really well. And the neurological world is a huge thing that we do. And the Dan Fichters and the Chris Corfuses and the Track Football Consortium guys are my people too. So it's like, I'm trying to take the best on planet Earth and combine it into what we offer.
I think I may have mentioned this when we did our intro call,
Mm-hmm.
but your philosophy feels a lot like Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Take what is useful, discard what is useless. I mean, useless
Yeah.
is kind of an extreme, but nonetheless, right? It's like take what makes sense.
Yeah.
There are valuable aspects in all different training philosophies.
Well, and so much of that is for your population, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm colleagues, I would say, not like, buddies that we talk on the weekend, but with a lot of people that literally produce content that goes after Ben Patrick. And I
Like by going after, you mean like
like,
dogging on or
yeah, like, and
critiquing.
I think if you got them in a room by themselves, they're like, yeah, this is clickbait. This is why I have
Right.
600,000 followers, right? They're very calculated. There's some guys that I think are bags. I'm gonna be honest with you, like that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
they don't understand the system.
Yeah.
Nor I think if you're gonna go to that extent to purposely badmouth a theory, you ought to have tried it yourself.
100%.
Just, I mean, to me, that makes a lot of logical sense. It's the guys that are like, oh, tib raises and backward sledding is going to fix everything. And I'm like,
That's a straw man. Okay, yeah, you're straw manning Ben's
yeah,
system,
right.
right? Yeah, yeah.
And
He wouldn't even claim that they'll fix everything. He's just saying it's a valuable
right.
thing.
Nor would I from that standpoint. But so there's those guys, and then there's everywhere in between. I a lot of respect for a lot of guys that I think a lot of his stuff is stupid, but I'm like, where are you coming from? I think you're so. Some are threatened, right? I think some of it's insecurity. I think some of it
Hmm.
is ATG has become so popular; it's become low hanging fruit to pick on in the world too,
Mhm.
right? It's
Mhm.
become corny to some, or
Mhm.
hey, this is just rehab, prehab training and not real strength training. And I'm like, well, okay, you go ATG squat your body weight on your back and tell me that doesn't get you stronger, because
Right. Yeah, yeah. How much of you think is like ship sailing in the night? So people who are critiquing are actually after different outcomes than what ATG is trying to address. So what I mean by that is if a bodybuilder is critiquing ATG, it's like we're trying to solve for two very different outcomes, right?
yeah, I think it's individual. It's case by case. Some of it for sure, and there's bodybuilders that have employed some of these methods and they feel better, right?
Hundred percent.
I just, yeah, I think ATG's dogmatic nature serves up a big meaty fastball right down the middle of the plate for some people to go swing at.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think there's a lot of the other part I see getting picked on is these beginner coaches that are gung ho with it. They're excited. They're putting stuff out there and they don't really know what they're doing yet.
Mhm.
And that was a little bit of a turnoff for me. I got kind of annoyed on the chats, to be honest with you, with just a lot of these 20 somethings that are just asking the most basic questions that they can figure out themselves. And it just kind of became, okay, I don't have the time to be in this space anymore. The ROI necessarily wasn't there. And, that's not my business, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not helping me grow. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the people that matter, I have good relationships with, and I've actually made some really good friends through that network. So I think there's definitely a debt of gratitude for me with that community, and I still pay every month, go through programs, and we really like it for our adults, especially.
Mhm.
I think very very good plug and play programming for 90% of the general pop, right? That just
Yeah.
has a fitness goal, right? And I think you attack from an athletic standpoint, you can get a lot of results there too for athletes, obviously. So
Well, let's get into your training philosophy
Mhm.
and the services that you provide. Where would you like to start there?
Yeah, I mean, we're called sports performance for, I guess, for that reason. So we're not sport specific. I think sports specific is a catchy tagline that shady people use to convince parents to pay extra money for generic training.
Mhm,
I don't
mhm,
believe in baseball specific. I don't believe in, football specific training, basketball specific training from the standpoint that GPP is GPP. If we're trying to build an athlete's resiliency, we need to understand professionally what carries over, what doesn't, and all these things get argued till people are blue in the face. But,
mhm,
you know, just as you know from being a track athlete, the amount of weight that I squat doesn't correlate with my 100-meter time.
mm-mm,
Now, now can it when I'm a eighth grade freshman weakling that doesn't know how to move their body and I build some muscle and I get faster? Absolutely. But there's that point of return where professionally, again, you look for what does my clientele need? Well, my clientele needs to run faster, jump higher, be more explosive, and be more resilient to injuries. They don't need to compete in powerlifting. Now, if they choose to do that, I jokingly but seriously tell them, well, you can plan on getting slower and moving
mhm,
less mobile, right? Like there's give and take, right? So philosophically, we're trying to bring in, for us, it all starts with the brain. It starts with neurological applications. Our warm up is neurological from an activation. We do RPR, which is just a wake up drills where you're rubbing spots on your body to get your brain to connect with your muscles.
hmm,
A 5 minute process. You're instantly more flexible. My football team, soft tissue injuries went away when we started replacing any kind of dynamic or traditional stretching warm up routine just with this modality, which just leads me down the path to other neurological certifications that I've gotten, and to the point where, I spend a lot of my weekends. That's what I just came from, was a hour and a half session with a pretty high level young gymnast girl that, came in with knee pain and left without knee pain. Right. And we didn't,
mm,
and so what we're doing is we're through this square one system, and my good friend Sean Sherman, that you want a good interview, go look him up. He has a system that basically can get down to the joint that's intolerant to whatever stimulus you give it, a movement, a touch, a tap, a thought, and find out basically what the brain's protecting and hanging on to, and be able to release that, and just you get people to open right up. Their mobility opens up, their pain goes away. So we go brain first. So there's multiple things. Posturology courses from Matt Boulay. He's up in Canada, So what we really do, is like I said, there's this not status quo stuff, right? Like
yeah, I've never heard of this.
so when the brain's good, the body works, right? So everybody
Makes
knows it
sense
runs.
conceptually.
Yeah, I mean everybody knows that. Like, oh, duh, that makes sense, right? But like, how many people know how to actually activate that? A lot of different phrasing, but turn things on versus turning things off. Like a muscle is stupid, right? It doesn't do anything without impulses, right? But
Yep.
things don't fire properly or fire in proper sequence. Like, so in your world, if someone, has a hamstring issue they just can't get over, and most likely, especially if you've tried a bunch of different rehab and traditional ice and stem and dry needling and tissue work, what I call hardware versus software work,
Mhm,
it's probably a firing pattern where between your glutes and your hamstrings and your QL muscles, and they're not firing in the right sequence, right? And so you can literally rub spots on your body to get that sequence to fire appropriately, and then your hamstring is doing its job, not your QL muscle trying to do your hamstring job, or your glute firing second in that sequence. And it's not always, hey, I'm an overstrider and I overreach and my running form's bad. It's no, I mean, nobody pulls their hamstring in fourth gear, right? It's always max velocity, the highest strenuous spot of a race, of a run, or a explosive movement, or something very dynamic and very fast twitch in nature, right? So we realize that literally how your foot hits the ground changes how your entire body operates up the chain. So if I'm, pronating too much or supinating too much, or just everything from the ground up, if my foot doesn't hit the ground right, that's going to send bad messages to my brain, or inefficient messages to the brain, that's going to
mhm,
affect my overall locomotion. So we're chasing optimal human performance with this, right? So we can pattern the brain to receive the information accurately, basically. So the body just plain and simple works better. I mean, I've got rid of vertigo, carpal tunnel, necks, knees, backs, got smell back from COVID through the system, like weird hormonal stuff in ladies, trauma that came into my gym that I wouldn't plan on working up, and getting that stuff cleared out. Like it's a absolute game changer. So we don't do anything unless the brain's addressed first, and almost always asking the brain, were you okay with that? Was that okay with you? Like, okay, we can move on to that, because there's ways we can easily test whether that movement, that joint action was perceived as a safety response or a threat to the nervous system. So when the nervous system gets regulated, everything's optimal. So I mean, we'll put inches on somebody's vertical jump just by having them breathe differently and do things with their eyes and stuff like that. So very cool stuff. So when when you dive into that world, you can't unsee it. So I have no choice but look through the brain. I planned my football practice based on our central nervous system and like where we should be on certain days, right, to be the most optimal for our game day and things like that. So
Hmm.
that's the tip of the mountain, because except the brain feels good, the body works right. So I mean, I'm just a good thief. I've taken trips I couldn't afford to take and spending money I couldn't afford to spend. I see the power in this stuff, and yeah, it's a dangerous slope because you won't ever come back. You won't ever see training again, and
Mm.
it'll open your eyes to just even little things like juggling, reset your nervous system in between a set, and walking in a figure eight infinity pattern can reset your nervous system. And cross crawl marching before you get under a squat rack or literally makes your bilateral movement stronger, and just little hacks that improve performance. So when you see it work, when you can't deny it, there's no really looking back. So that's what we're after. And then everything below that is very speed centered. I think we track 11 or 12 things in our facility, where some typical things: vertical jump, broad jump, 10 flies, 10 accelerations, 20-yard accelerations, isometric holds, dead hang time, pull ups, dips, full range, I would say, the ATG style or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that we track beyond a sled push has a weight attached to it. So it's a
Mm.
number or a distance or a height. So, and so far so good. We have record boards where kids write down their initial number when they come in for a assessment, and then right next to it there's a slash and dry erase marker, and every time they beat their record they rewrite their new number in, and we track it and send home a profile for every kid on our Facebook page. So mom and dad and everybody else know, they can look at that and say, yes, this is what I'm paying for. Wow, look at that improvement over this amount of time. And so far so good. I mean, we've got data to back up what we're doing. We don't rest on that. We start getting stagnant in an area. We're like, okay, our broad jumps are kind of, what do we need to change, right? Do we need to do more horizontal force expression, right? Things like that. And
And when you say stagnant, do you mean stagnant across the population
yeah,
area?
yeah, like we got somewhere around 90 athletes in, so it's like it's kind of just like that coach's eye. Like when we test, we don't train for a block and test. So every day you come in, you're going to get some sort of speed test, whatever day it is. It might be your 10 fly day. We do 10 flies with different run-ins. Here's a 15-yard run-in, here's a 5-yard run-in. So we were even able to see, okay, you're really good on early acceleration, but like your late acceleration might need
Mm-hmm.
attention, right? Or your max velocity is where you're weakest, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
just discern that just
Kicking
based
out.
on how often we assess. So, like I said, every day, I mean, most of our athletes come in twice a week because we want them long term. They're already busy doing 1,000 other things. So it's really that approach. But, once out of every 4 workouts, you're going to broad jump. Once out of every 4, you're going to vertical jump. So we tie those KPIs to the theme of the day. So we have a vertical force day, a horizontal force day. So that's how the programming's laid out, right? We have a rotational force day. We have an isometric force day. So we are chasing those qualities, right, that we want to see in athletes, and then more of a dynamic force day. So we kind of operate on a 5-day program, if you will, and we cycle that through. And if we find something that we like better, we'll decide to replace an exercise, but really that's how we stay consistent. And so some people ask me, is that's what you do? Like, how long do you do that for? And like, essentially forever. It's a working document, but we're not like, oh, here's this block. Here's everybody we train is in season. There's no off season for anyone. So, I mean, because that's North Texas, nobody's off. You know, if you're a one sport athlete, then you have fall baseball, and now you have winter baseball, and now you have spring baseball, and so it's still in season, right? So we're not backing off, nor are we burning the stake from the standpoint of our goal is never to leave our facility exhausted and dragging yourself out the door, because we need you primed, right? We need to provide the stimulus to grow you, to improve you, but also be able to still go do what else you need to do, right? Like, we recognize we're the main course that feeds these things, but society doesn't, right? Parents don't. That football team's the main course, that basketball team's the main course. Well, that's never going to get accepted, that you come into training is going to be, should be the thing that you specialize in, right? That should be
Mm-hmm.
your sports specialization, right? So we get a lot of, oh, it's football season, we need to take it off. And I'm like, it's probably the worst decision you can make. But, this idea that this is going to add to it, it's going to stimulate, like, our kids get faster during the season, right? Like, they don't get slower, they don't get weaker. Like, we are breaking records year round in people. So we feel like we got a good system, and we'll keep going after it, and just trying to check every box that we can. And, we've got high level athletes that are, Division I college, different divisions of college athletes. They do the same program that our elementary kids do.
Mm.
It's just tiered accordingly, right? Like,
Yeah, scaled. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not that hard, like getting somebody strong. I tell people all the time, that's the easiest part of the job. Like, you can get strong with your dad in the garage. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not hard. Can you train for performance? Like, that's where we feel like we differentiate a little bit, where
Safely.
I don't care how much you bench, squat, or clean, to be honest with you. Can you move? Are you fast? Did you outrun that kid, or did he outrun you? Right?
That's right. Yeah, unless your sport is lifting as much as possible.
Or Olympic lifting for that regard. We don't do any Olympic
Olympic lifting.
lifting.
Yep.
We don't do that in house. Do we do things that look like that? Yeah, I think there's safer, smarter, more effective ways to slice that onion. I don't know. Like, I don't
No cleans or snatches. Oh, nice.
know. So I don't think there's bad movements. I don't think, for who we train and what we believe in. I've bought in books to try to convince myself to Olympic lift, and they're like, nope, still not doing
It's not additive for what differentiates your training system. It's not additive. Like they're
No.
either getting that already,
Mhm.
or it's just not going to move the needle for making kids quicker, faster,
Yeah,
more
yeah,
explosive.
it's twofold. They're doing it anyway, so we don't double up on stimulus. We don't back squat a kid that just back squatted at morning lifting at high school, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's malpractice. So
Mhm.
try to stay away from that. Always checking in. Once you hit middle school, we check in, right? What did you already do today? So we can adapt on the fly, right? Okay, well, you change this modality, or just take that one off, right? Like, you can read a kid if they're smoked, like, you're not going to do any good with them. Like, we'll almost always divert to an isometric, because an isometric is going to get you great stimulus, and it's going to also be recovery based and healing in nature. And I mean, it's going to crush you in the moment, and then you'll wake up and not be sore from it, right? So
Mhm.
if I double back squatted you, you're not recovered for 72 hours, most likely, right? Like, you
Mhm.
have 3 practices in between there. Next time we see you, I haven't. I think Olympic lifting, on the other hand, I call her a girl you have to marry. Like, if you're gonna do it, like, you don't date that girl.
It's intense.
Like,
Doing it's intense.
and I think it's impressive to see people. Again, I look at it like powerlifting. I look at it like it's a sport, right? These
Mhm.
movements
It is
are
a sport.
competitive. High respect for guys that can cling a bunch of weight and put their butt cheeks on the ground and catch it smooth. But I don't know. The people I follow and respect and look up to have long convinced me that we can get its stimulus, right. Why do I need to do that if I'm after the same thing?
Do you think that it is net neutral for high level athletes to be performing Olympic lifting?
At best.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is
Mhm.
it hurting them, or is it simply we can accomplish the same athletic outcomes more safely? But if, let's say, a professional football team wants to have their
Mhm.
players cleaning and snatching, It's
Hmm.
not going to hurt them as long as they do it safely, but we can do the same thing without the risk.
Yeah, I would say net neutral would be the biggest compliment, I would say.
Yeah.
That's as far as I would go with it.
Yeah.
And like I said, people can disagree till they're blue in the face. I hear a lot of things related to mobility and we need to clean so we can get our hips in this position, being a football
Mm-hmm.
coach, right, and be more explosive. And then I watch these schools do them, and I'm like, you're not. There's no full body range movements here. There's nothing explosive about it. It's just hulking the weight up by whatever means necessary. So if I were to, or if I was forced to, it'd be light weights going really fast. I want to try to get out of that force velocity curve as fast as I can. I want to sit down and come out of that quickly. None of this slow, patterned, sloppy feet stumbling all over the place type of catching, right? I've got a attachment that goes on the end of the bar that's got rotating handles, and I can simulate that, and I don't have to worry about teaching a catch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, so I'm not anti-movement, right? I'm not anti
Yeah, I
being
hear what you're saying.
explosive and anti-triple extension and all those other things. But one of my guys that I really look up to in the field, Cal Dietz, that does, he's famous for triphasic training. I was at a clinic where he was speaking, and he's like, we get better ground force reaction time off a banded trap bar jump than catching a clean. So,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
you're smarter
Hmm.
than me. You train Olympic athletes for a living and high level D1 athletes for a living. I'm going to go with that because it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot easier for me to arrange that.
Yeah.
And again, my
Interesting.
majority of my clientele is middle school kids.
How does that break down age-wise? Rough percentages. How many of your clients are adults versus minors?
Oh, adults like 5% right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
So
So
as yeah, we're opening a new facility, and then we're going to go hard with adults. So right now, adults are our fill-ins when we have time, when we have openings. My wife has a mom's group, a ladies group. I got a few guys that come in. They have building access, so I don't even know what they do. To be honest with you, I,
CrossFit.
I've given them programs, and as far as I know, that's what they're doing. But
Okay.
we just don't have the space right now to accommodate both. A month
Mm-hmm.
from now, we will, and so that's a whole new market we can serve, right? So
So we'll get into business stuff in just a second, but I want to get your perspective on Spinal Engine. This is something I've recently heard about. What is your view on that?
your spine is meant to move and meant to bend and meant to be strong in every possible position. So that's why we have a rotational day. We have a whole day in our programming of 5 days where we're really like what the Landmine University guy does. He's out of Iowa. He is one of a wrestling guy
Mhm.
background. But if you want to call that our Olympic lifting, that's what we do for fast, explosive, dynamic movements. We'll get a landmine bar and do landmine snatches. We'll do, just a lot of rotational throws or, presses and things like that are dynamic in nature where your whole body, right? We do, Jefferson curls and things like that nature to just a lot of rotational stuff, a lot of side bend things. I'm not going to dive, I don't think, too deep into going and studying that because I'm convinced that we're meant to move and flex and bend and be strong in those positions.
Mhm.
And I can rest on training that arguably for the rest of my life and know that we're doing okay if we're getting strong. Like I said, go back to getting strong in every position that we can, right? Why would you not? Why would you leave
Yeah. Yeah.
X amount of degrees of range of motion susceptible to weakness, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like when I stopped training my lower back, all of a sudden squatting hurts my lower back, right? Like when I stop focusing on, I mean, we like a reverse hyperextension a lot. We do a lot of that for our lower back. And
Yeah.
when I get lazy with that, go figure, my back starts hurting, So yeah,
Mhm.
I believe in moving that spine. I know that theory. I know it's a whole thing on it and probably certifications you can get, but I'm pretty confident that if we can move in every plane of motion with some sort of resistance or isometrically, we're going to be okay and take care of that.
Now, I recently came across this both from my last interviewee on the podcast and from a recent video that Nsima Enyang dropped on YouTube. Those heavy ropes, that are used for training Spinal Engine, as well as I don't remember what they're called. These like weird mace club looking things that you swing that you swing around. Have you
Oh,
heard of it? Does this
kind
ring
of
a
like
bell at all?
David Weck stuff, like
Yes, yes,
Weck
yes. Whack.
stuff. Yeah. I think his stuff is good. I'd look at it as accessory movements for me, I guess. Like I think like going back to nobody has it all figured out. Like you can't do everything. There's just not the
Right.
time, the space, the place. So, to your point, throw out what doesn't work, right? And do what does. And I think people just always have to go back to the lens of like, who am I training? What are their goals? Right. I mean, we won't have many adults that care about their 10 fly time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Except me. I would care.
you're
But
right. I do. I do.
most won't.
I do as well. So it's available if that matters to you, right? But
Yeah.
most people just don't want to be in pain, right? So,
Right.
but yeah, I think all of that's good. I think we're meant to be versatile beings, right? That can move and bend and twist, and no one should have to go into a perfect squat form to pick something off the ground, right? You should just
Hmm.
thoughtlessly, casually just bend over and grab it, right? Like
Yeah.
not worry about a disc slipping or something silly like that, right?
So funny you mentioned that because I was a personal trainer before coming over into finance, which is what I do now. And now I'm trying to come full circle back into the reason I got into finance in the first place. But yeah, I remember coaching never put your knees over your toes. And I would literally squat in chest upright squat just to pick up like a quarter or a penny
Mhm.
or a plate off the ground.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
it's like, wait, really? Why are we doing this? Because that was the motion I trained.
right. And so those are your strengths, and everything else is pretty much a weakness, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we went out to, you said, mentioned in SEMA, like we did an ATG weekend at Mark Bell's gym a handful of years ago. So we went out there and they kept a lot of the stuff Mark did, that they saw the power of the simple stuff like sledding and backwards walking. And it was very well received.
Mm.
So I think you have to take everybody, all the critics and all the supporters with a grain of salt, right? And just I think you got to vet everything, right? Like, hey, what's your angle? What are you coming from? Do you even know what you're talking about? Are you clickbaiting? All the above, right? So I don't want to be known for hey, I'm this kind of guy, because that's not really accurate, right? I'm some of this and I'm some of that and I'm some of this, and combined there's not a lot doing what we do, from neurological piece to the ATG stuff to the specific speed stuff, from who I think are the most elite people in the world doing speed. So I feel like our product's really good, and it's naturally only get better. The only reason it doesn't get better, we quit learning, right? So,
Hmm.
um, Jay Schrader stuff, you go look into his training with like Adam Archuleta, and you got to go underneath the surface a little to find that stuff. But, we got guys doing 20-minute isometrics with 400 pounds on their back, right? Like, and like understanding, like, once you get past a certain point, your body will start using like your lactic acid and stuff for actually energy, start refueling itself. Like, if you can get past that immense suffering of the first few minutes, it actually becomes easier. And now that takes an enormous amount of willpower, and something that I have yet to explore because I'm not mentally strong enough for that. But I fully believe if I had one modality, I would just pick isometrics. If you gave me one modality to do, it's
Wow. Yeah. So my guess is working primarily with youth, you're not focusing on hypertrophy much, if at all.
I believe in it on paper, but I kind of sort of don't even believe in progressive overload as a hard and fast rule, right? Like, we measure what we measure, and our numbers get better, and our kids get better really fast at what they do. And so, in a sense, what we do, those KPIs are what we're chasing, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
I understand that, yes, if somebody starts peaking and they're being lazy, yeah, you probably should add some weight to that because your stimulus is not strong enough to advance you in this area, right? Like, I'm not saying progressive overload is a bad theory because it's the most common sense theory in the world. Oh, I got this much weight for this many reps. Cool. Now that's easy. All right, add more, right? But then you teeter on that line where you become a numbers chaser, not a performance chaser. And being in the performance space, that trumps lifting numbers, right? So, because you can Takes a while, but when you become an upper level athlete, your ROI becomes, you got to watch it, right? I'm getting stronger when I'm getting slower. So,
Yeah. Yeah. What's the
stop,
trade-off? Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if I was highly privatized with elite professional athletes, would I train an offensive lineman different than a receiver? In some ways, but not as much as people might naturally assume. Where's your weak links, right? I mean, maybe bench press is more valuable for an O lineman, right? But
Hmm.
maybe it's some version of explosive power that doesn't correlate necessarily much to the weight on the bar. Like you can't be a weakling, obviously, and play that sport at that position, right?
Yeah, and body weight is a factor, right? And so some level of hypertrophy training may be more helpful for the O lineman position purely from a body weight standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think the best thing any of us can do is safely and wisely to the best of our ability is experiment. Like it's what we're all kind of doing, right? Like, oh, we didn't like that. Okay. Well, we didn't get worse. I'll go back to Cal Dietz. Something that resonated with me that he said at a clinic was like, I did this for 20 years and it was good.
Mm,
And why did I get rid of it? I threw away 20 years of thinking this was what we needed to do. I found something better.
mm,
So the ego has to not be there, right? The ego has to be set aside. Like, this was good, but this is optimal. So I'm going to go
mhm,
with optimal,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
Most people are
mhm.
stuck with good, right? Especially in the sports world, in those traditional football type sports. Well, hey, I've won state titles and this is how we lifted. I'm like, oh, you won because you had freaking athletes, you know, and you unintentionally didn't cause more harm than good, right?
There's a lot of variables.
So many variables. Where I find the biggest frustrations is like I can't even watch a high school weight room. Like
You're just
like,
where?
it's so hard for me. And it's not the place that I'm at now. It's dang near every place that I've been that I'm like, you know how much better I could make this. But you don't even know enough to know how much I know.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
that's the thing. It's like you're stuck in this safe space where you're like, well, if we don't, everybody doesn't bench this or squat this, we're not going to be a good football team. I'm like, you're missing the whole picture here. So,
Mm.
until that becomes my role, I have to, be respectful and do what I can do to help in the ways that I can. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me that the gym's the baby, but I'm also teaching and coaching right now
Mm.
as a way to supplement our growth in our business, right? I need to hire people and I need people to work and be good trainers. But we're at the place right now where, we're doing well, but not well enough to support multiple people's lifestyles. So went back into that this year to just help bridge that gap. I mean, I miss coaching a lot and I've got a lot to offer. Just finding that place that values that, I think, is really the X factor, whether I stick around or not, or if our adults blow up when we get our new facility, it'll be like, hey, I'm out because I got to be at the gym all day and for good reasons, right? So
So talk to me then about the business model. On your website, you have 3 coaches, not including you and your wife. I would love to get into margins, client acquisition, anything like that, and the economics that if things go well in your expansion, what you would expect to see on that side. So maybe we can talk first about margins and cost drivers.
and my wife, that's her bag, so I'll probably give you the surface level stuff on that. But I mean, when you start out, when we moved down here a couple of years ago, come one, come all. Yep, you can have a discount. Yep, just come in our doors, please. Right?
Yeah.
I started in my garage. We still were operating in Nebraska. Zach, one of the trainers that you see on there, was running our Nebraska facility. We were going to try to have 2 locations, and we just eventually decided to go all in down here. The market's so much better down here. But when I was in my garage, I think I had 7 people, and I think 5 were adults and a couple athletes. And we grew to maybe 10 or 12, and then we opened a brick and mortar spot, and thank God people came. So
Mm.
I think in year 2 here in January of operation, we're at a place where, okay, now we know our numbers, we know we have our goals, right, our targets and our trajectories. But we're in a very affluent area of the country where rent is not cheap, right? So most of that is still caught up in business costs, right? So between paying trainers and paying ourselves a little bit, and being smart with the taxes and setting aside money like that. Like we're this last year we got past that break even point, which is not bad for a year or two in business. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So 289 has been up for about 2 years then.
yeah, as an LLC, yeah, we were Wizard Performance before that. Have to do with the neurological stuff. That's what we opened down here under. Just through the brain stuff, that was a nickname people gave me, and I just went with I just went with it. But then it became a deal where it was hard to cold market with a name that didn't say what you did,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're on Highway 289 right now. Ephesians 2, 8, and 9 spells out the gospel. So there's like multifaceted reasons for rebranding, but it also came down to like people can't find us when they look for us. They don't know what
Yeah.
we do unless it's word of mouth, which is still most of our growth, but it just very practically helps to have your business actually say what you do. So
100%. Yeah.
I mean, we were ATG Nebraska when we were in Nebraska. Like that was a handshake agreement from Ben to use the name.
Hmm.
You've been loyal since day one. You can use the name, and now they're back on wanting to make ATG gyms right now. Where 4 years ago I was one of three in the world that used that as a DBA title, basically. So like I said, it works. So I don't know if I'll have conversations down the road with people about working that into our adult model or not. It'll have to benefit us, obviously. Like we're up and running, so it's like, do I really need to attach myself to somebody else when we already have a model?
Yeah, that was actually my initial reason for reaching out and finding out about ATG for coaches
Mhm.
was a desire to see an ATG optimized facility in the Seattle metro area.
I think there's a lot of use case for it. I really do. I don't know that where we're at, we might be too far down the road, especially with our athletes. Like that's not getting compromised at all, But for our adults, that's our go-to programming anyway,
Hmm.
right? So maybe it makes sense, but we'll cross that road if it that opportunity comes. But yeah, I mean, I think we year one to year two, we had about 100K increase in revenue. So I mean, just from projections are going the right way, right? But we're moving from 1,500 square feet to 5,000 here in a month. So that's the cost goes up with that. I don't have really anything to hide, but I'm not the one dealing with the numbers on the back end. So my bandwidth isn't that high. So
Mm.
I'm at school 12 hours a day between teaching and coaching. So making a couple weekly visits to the gym to shake hands and kiss babies and go from there right now. So ideally, as an owner, you should be working on your business more than in your business. And so
Hmm.
part of that was going after that goal. I don't want to sit around with my arms crossed and not train people, but I'm not a 20 something year old person anymore that's trying to feel like you have a bunch of years to sacrifice. It's kind of this is go time right now, right? So
Yeah.
try to find that balance between being a business owner, being a trainer, having another full time, very demanding jobs, not a clock in, clock out. I'm responsible for 120 some freshmen that I see every day, and just got done with football, and now I got 12 hours between me. Time I got home from my last football game to the time I was coaching basketball is 12 hours later. So it's like,
Whew.
here we go.
It's
So
exhausting. Yeah.
it is, but it's a season, right? It's a necessary thing. I ended up getting fortunate to be in a good spot at a school down the road with good people, and so I just say, God works how He needs to work, and we needed what we needed at this time, and we'll just keep addressing and assessing, and go from there. I don't know. I've always said could be a one and done. It could be a deal where I want to keep coaching to see my boys the rest of their high school careers and have that experience with them, and knowing that I can, and if things are good on the home front, the business front, maybe that's something we do, or maybe this is just like, hey, this was a really good supplemental income from a year, and our new facility is going crazy, and it's the most logical thing to do is to get my butt back in there where
Yeah.
to the main thing anyway. So
What's your long term vision for 289?
on multiple locations, there's opportunity here like there isn't in most parts of the country. The Dallas Metroplex is one, if not the fastest growing areas in the country. So
Hmm.
the Celina, where I live, is literally the number one fastest growing city in the country. Like number
Oh,
one,
wow.
like top.
Why is that?
It's the next spot that's not full north of Dallas, and there's tons of land. So, 10 years ago, this was about 10,000 people, and it's sitting about 40 right now. So,
Mhm.
like 23% growth over the
Yeah,
year,
yeah, yeah.
like stupid growth. Like,
I'm sure lots of families, right? If
yeah,
it's
they can't build fast enough. So,
yeah, yeah.
it's pretty affluent too. I mean, we're about 800,000 on an average house here. Prosper is right next to us. Their average homes is right at 1 million. So it's like it's a better market to be in, but there's opportunity to the north of us that hasn't been spoken for by, I would call, the big box places, right? The people that the D1s, the people that have, they're established training facilities, right? Your kind of cracker box generic places that I don't know. I don't want to talk too bad about them, but I just don't think they do very quality work all the time.
Mhm.
So there's nothing really substantial north of us. So the idea is to get there before other people do and take risks, because I'm at the point where I don't really care about risks. It's just we believe in what we do. We find the right people to do it with us, and then it's going to work. So yeah, I mean, I have conversations with another building right now. We don't even have this one up yet,
Mm.
and where
For
we're,
a third location.
yeah, for another one. We're going to be out of this one we're in now, so this will be our only spot when we move out. But and then there's opportunities to acquire more buildings on the property that we're moving to as well, because there's going to be a complex out there of multiple buildings that are all sport related tenants. So there's a baseball club out there now that has 3 buildings, and this is all the same property owner. So it's his land. It's a lease situation for us. So us, 289, and a volleyball club buildings, and then there's 6 more that are going to go up. So they're all build to suit shells, and they're all going to be sport related. So the awesome part is potentially our clients are literally coming to us and practicing 10 seconds from our building. So
Mhm.
building relationships with those club teams and things that are going to be taking these spaces up and for their own sports is really our growth model for athletes. We have, like I said, a steady, loyal patronage that we're extremely grateful for. And then the next step is creating those team relationships where, you know, finding the right mindset team coaches and club coaches that understand the value of this. And hey, we're going to contract with you, right?
Mhm.
You're going to be the official trainers of Martinez 14U, right? Whatever, things like that, And that's been our biggest hang up on club teams, is asking them to come to us twice a week when they have to go to practice twice a week. And then every one of those kids has got a private lesson once a week. There's just not enough days in the week.
Yeah, yeah,
So to
interesting.
try to be on site where those things are already practicing. No, now you're already here, right? Go to practice
Yeah.
and go train afterwards, or vice versa, right? That's kind of the projections that, it's all hypothetical, but there's no reason why we can't capitalize on people literally 20 feet away from us in a different facility that are going to be, running their club teams out of there.
Are those higher margin contracts than the individual child or family contracts?
I mean, over the long term, they are, right? But, with the team situation, there's usually some sort of give and take with, discount and numbers. Like we used to offer, like, hey, if you have more than, 10 or 12 athletes that can be considered a team, and then here's your team discount, right? And we've tried that with 2 different teams, and we just haven't got the commitment. We'll get 4, 5, 6 kids off the team, and then the agreement kind of fizzles out, and then partially on our end for not having an ironclad contract in hand. Just like I said, when you're starting up, you're like, yep, sounds good, let's go. And then you learn lessons after that, right? You learn how to be a business owner instead of just trying to collect a check, right? So, I think we've got burned a couple times with that. Not vindictively, just circumstantially, like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I need this team to say at tryouts, hey, we're partnered with 289 Sports Performance. If your child makes this team, this is what we do, right? Like, we train here. So we provide this. Yeah, your dues are probably going to be a little higher if you play for us, but you don't have to go somewhere else to search for this, right? Our team can train together. We can. So that's really what it's finding those people that understand the value of it. And I think that's an individual conversation, right? So, contractually, I mean, it's guaranteed annual money, but beyond that, I mean, we don't stick anybody longer than that. That's our longest term contract. So as those things come, those opportunities present itself, I think we just have to nail down our procedures and be willing to say no if it doesn't fit our model, right? And not continually concede to all these different requests, right? Because that's what we get. Well, so and so wants a discount. Well, they can't do it for this much, and just at the end of the day, saying, "Hey, it's what we charge. It's what we offer. I understand if it doesn't work. Shake hands and part ways." And
Yeah.
we're to that point now where, yeah, we'd love to have your business, but we don't have to right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like if we don't get you in, we can't buy groceries. But we were there.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
year and a half ago where it's like, yeah, I can't even stand working with you, but I need you to pay me. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah, but it's also detrimental to the client. And of course, clients don't see it this way. But if you undercharge, then you underpay your employees, your coaches. And if you
yeah,
underpay your coaches and they're not motivated, and the quality deteriorates, and then people get unhappy. So it's a downward spiral.
100%. Yeah. And I think you fall into the scarcity mindset, right? Where you just concede and you're like, and then really, if you follow good business people in whatever industry, they don't negotiate their terms.
You're actually doing a disservice to your customer, because if your goal is measurable transformation, the only way to get that is adherence. And
Hmm.
when people pay less, they value less. And
Right.
when they value less, they adhere less. And so,
100%. Yeah.
right? And so you're actually going to get worse results for your customers by giving discounts.
Right.
If
Yeah.
they don't get it, then it's like, all right, I mean,
Which is hard for someone that's not been trained in the business space to learn.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
because I think we all wake up with a little bit of that default mindset, right? You got to train, I think, your brain to think that way and to think business savvy and be willing to say no to someone that's not your ideal client. So it's a maturation process for me. Had I wished I learned this 20 years ago, absolutely, but here we are. So maybe far from have it all figured out, but the more systems we get in place, this is what we get. Because we got people like, hey, can we just try it out for a couple of months? No, like
no.
yeah, like we have an assessment. You pay $50 for that. We take your initial numbers, we have a conversation with you. If you want to go, let's go. If not, we didn't work for free. We were giving those away for free. And I'm like, nope, no more free assessments. We're done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's, I got to turn the lights on to pay somebody to do that. And that's been the best thing we've done in the last year is that assessment. But we get 70, 80% return, like sign up software assessments. So
Do you have a content strategy?
we've flirted with so many different things from thought we were going to pay somebody to do it to hey, I'm digging into Alex Hormozy stuff and digging into that's a bandwidth thing for me. That's something I need to hire out, as soon as possible. My wife's taken that on to the point where at least there's better content going out, with
Hmm.
themed days and win Wednesdays and shout out Sundays and things like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
I think, we try to nurture, right? So, I mean, I would say there is a strategy. It's just not professional necessarily.
I got
Like
you. I
it's
got you.
it's in its infancy, right? So we've laid it out, right? It exists on paper to answer your
Yeah,
question.
it's the execution
So
of it.
like
Yeah.
here's what we do to nurture, right? And here's what we do to grow, right? To try to get into untapped markets, right? And there's kind of like these three tiers that we're trying to chase, but like I just feel like that's something that businesses eventually need to just to find someone that's really good at it, that films, that produces, that I think we'll get there. Heck, I got kids that are aging out. I might turn them into one of them. It's like,
Yeah, shoot. Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you say farm out, you're talking about like the thumbnail creation, titles, like posting. I mean, I wouldn't recommend you not be in it. Is
well,
that?
and that's the thing. It's like I have to be the face of the brand,
I think you should.
and
Yeah.
and my messaging needs to be the message. So it has to be a very intimate, trusted
Yes.
person, right? And I think
Yes.
I will tell you right now, my wife is the right person for that. She's
Yeah.
just juggling too much to be like, so as we grow, I see like, hey, this is where you go because as well as I do, is like, hey, pick Hermosi, pick somebody and just go
Mhm.
with it, right? Like run the
Mhm.
strategy, like because they all are saying the same things. It's like reading leadership books. They all say the same
Yep.
stuff.
Pick one that resonates with you
And we
and
go.
go deep.
Right. So, we do a little bit of paid ads here and there.
Mhm.
Definitely hasn't been a main thing, but I think just producing better content here the last few months, we've gotten more cold leads and doing the shout outs where other moms see other kids getting recognized, like, oh, that's cool. They do, right? Like people spend money for emotions, right? They pay for emotional,
100%, and they justify with logic.
right. Yeah. So, you got to learn this stuff. And I don't ever want to be fake. Like, I don't like scripted stuff. I don't like to have a camera be put in my face and told what to do. I just, whether I come off dry or whatever, I'm not hype man. Like, hey, welcome here. We're super excited to have you. And like, bro, you're gonna get what you get. Like, I'm gonna be serious about it. Let's go to work. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Once you walk in our doors, most people don't leave. I think that we have really good retention. Like they get results. The atmosphere is, we try to make it fun. Like kids, we hear all the time. Their parents are like, they want to come. They love it here. Like they're not dragging their kids into training, right? And
Mhm.
it's a big credit to Zach, our main trainer. He's just super good with that young population. He gamifies stuff. I don't know if you've seen any Jeremy Frisch stuff. Like his whole gym looks like it's a performance gym, but it looks like a play session. They're jumping, diving on bags and mats, and we compete, we time, we rank, record, we publish, we gamify, right? So the kids leave there better and don't feel like, man, that sucked. Like
You just need to
that's
capture that. You just need to capture that. I'm sure if you put content up, I'm not on TikTok, but if you're trying to reach kids, you got to be on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Just capture it, put it out there. Like you're gonna create buzz.
yeah, and that's one thing with just consistency. Like we have all those, we have all, and we just don't. It's a bandwidth thing. We're running on fumes constantly. Doing good stuff, but it's far from an excuse because nobody in here is afraid of hard work. Real life is a real thing too. So as we grow and continue to advance our methodology, then it's like, okay, yeah, you're a full-time content person, just go. you know you put it all out there, run it by me, just have the camera in, the live candid shots. I don't, like I said, I think that resonates. People, I think there's such a shortage on just real authentic stuff nowadays, right?
Mhm.
Everything's scripted, everything's clean and neat and tidy. I'd rather go the other way, and like
Mm-hmm.
there's
Counter
a,
positioning. I like that.
I
Yeah.
don't know. That's how I'm wired anyway. If I see a crowd walking one way, I'm like, I think I'm going that way.
Yeah, you
It's
think?
like,
Yeah.
but I say I've been batting 1,000 since COVID, so I haven't been wrong on one thing yet. So I'm gonna keep thinking the way I think. So
Yeah, if I've gotten one thing from you, Wade, it's you're clearly an early adopter. As soon as something becomes popular, you get skeptical.
yeah, yeah. Like I had too many people chasing that right now. But oh, what's this weird thing over here? Let's look into that. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everybody over here is stretching. Let's not stretch. Let's go rub weird parts on our body and holy crap, that works, right?
Yeah. You've already spent so much time with me. I do have a few just selfish questions. I want to
You're
get
good.
your
Yeah, no
opinion
worries.
on Starrett, Kelly Starrett. What do you think of him? Supple Leopard.
Haven't dug enough to know beyond who he is.
Okay.
I've got friends that are fans and friends that are haters.
Mhm.
Well, again, I'll just revert back to the same crap I already said. Is like, what's your population? What's your clientele? Who's it good for? Are you getting results? If you feel like you're a collegiate strength coach that loves Olympic lifting and everybody's kicking butt and taking names, then God bless you, do your thing, right? Like, yeah, that's I'm very familiar with the name, but I've not dug into it. So I'm
Okay.
not really the one to ask on that beyond just knowing who that is.
What
So,
about Graham Tuttle, barefoot sprinter?
Graham's an ATG guy.
I know. He's my next guest.
Yeah, okay. He was someone that Keegan really put up on a pedestal. And I think because he had a lot of drive, he had a lot of space, he had a lot of opportunity to grow without his situation in life, being younger, single, no kids, things like that. I watched him. I watched Graham elevate from just another coach to finding a niche, and he paid a lot of money to Keegan for his programs. I know what Keegan's charges, and
Hmm.
but he bought in, and credit to him, he he stuck with something, and we're barefoot people. You're not allowed to wear shoes in our gym. So like we're in that world.
Yeah.
Unless they're barefoot shoes, right? Like that's something that we do. We believe in from the ground up. And if your feet can't feel the ground, your brain's not going to receive those messages. So we look at through a neurological lens, but strong feet make strong ankles, make strong knees, make strong hips, right? It just kind of goes up the chain. So if that foot ankle complex is off and weak, then nothing else up the chain is going to be as efficient as it could be. So no, I think he's a good dude. Like it's probably someone that I've probably had multiple DMs with 3 and 4 years ago that I haven't said hi to in 3 or 4 years, right? So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I see his stuff. I think he deserves a lot of credit for finding a niche and putting the work in and doing what he did, right? So I don't, not somebody I follow or feel like I learn necessarily from, because like it's pretty obvious what he's doing and why he's doing it, right? And I'm on board with that philosophy anyway. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah,
doing.
I figured there was a lot of overlap with what you
Yeah, I
do.
mean, keep doing you, bro. Like, congratulations on putting the work in and making yourself a name out there. That's cool.
Yeah. Excitement. What are you excited about, Wade?
I'm excited to see how the Lord's going to provide for this next building. Like, just showing up. We do a lot of things on faith, which, the other side of that is stupidity. It depends on who you ask, right? So, it's,
They feel the same.
yeah, I mean, like they do. Like, and luckily, I married someone that's equally yoked in that, where we don't always just like hold hands and skip down the field together with our basket of flowers, and but like we're both to that point where like we're gonna jump off the diving board. We're not sure if there's water in the bottom of the pool or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like that's the only way people get things done. Everybody, what I found out over the years, especially teaching and education, really revealed this to me, that there's so many people that are just checking boxes and living very average lives. And when I got out of teaching the first time and quasi retired, thinking I would never go back, but here we are. So many people are like, I can't believe you're so courageous. You have so much courage. I admire you so much for having the guts to walk away. I'm like, this sucks. Like, look around. Like, this leaving this is not hard, and a lot of thing, if you're going to be in a system that's so structured and so regimented, like you got to have good people around you. So like I've worked for some trash administrators and worked for some good ones, and luckily I have good people that are at my school now, or it probably would be a living hell every day. But it's just like, just that status quo, right? Like that's why it's resonates so much. It's like I don't want anything to do with what looks average. Doesn't mean you wake up every day, but like average pisses me off. Like I've moved my kids multiple times because my perception on where we were was average. And we were pack up and we're gonna move because we're too good for this. I don't really care how that sounds. Like,
Mhm.
so it's almost this excited to see like just the fruition of everything, like how it's all gonna play out. Because we don't know. But when you're doing stuff right, if we stay, with God first and really intentionally not just say that, just leave that stuff there, then everything else falls in line, because that's essentially what we're promised, the provision, not from a materialistic or a wealth thing, but like just, hey, this is where I'll start. So we've got to constantly just be there with it. So yeah, I mean, just the growth, like the potential is so much, I'm excited for who's going to come into this that we don't know about, right? Like when I need rock stars, I need people that are on our level or better than us to grow this, right? Because that's the reason why like I hired people, because the one man band doesn't get it. You've got to recreate
Mhm.
yourself, or you've got to find people that do things better than you and let them go be pros at it, right? So, we can train people up, that's fine, but eventually, we go into a new facility, I need to be able to have the clout to make an offer enough to move somebody from a different state to come run a facility for me, right? Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
the kind of, it's got to take that person that believes in themselves as much as we believe in ourselves, but like I need a dude, right? I need a seasoned vet that's good. Here's an opportunity. And that's the thing. This industry is so hard, and most gyms fail.
Mhm.
Most private people are barely getting by.
Mhm.
Like you can keep swinging by yourself, but man, like how long do you really want to keep running this racket, right? And
Yeah.
work
Breaking even.
working
Yeah.
at Lowe's and Home Depot to make ends meet. Where I just feel like what I've learned is like we're better together. I could work 16-hour days, make better money than I ever have in my whole life, fire my employees and never leave the gym.
Mhm.
But there's only so many hours for one person, right? So you're never going to grow beyond that. And then big box comes in and it looks fancy, and all the people that don't know better bail for over there, and then you're sitting looking at your your empty walls. So we've got to, I mean, it's an arm race, right? Like people can't build football facilities big enough and fancy enough down here, 30, 40, $50 million stadiums going up left and right, right? So
Hmm.
it's like it's kind of that way in our world too. Like you've got to look the part. And that's probably what I'm most excited about just from a materialistic standpoint is like we do awesome work, but you're gonna be able to walk into a place, Lord willing, in a couple months and be like, oh dang, okay.
Like, whoa. Yeah.
Right. Like we can get something done here. Right. Oh, they have this. Oh, they have this. Right. Oh, my nutrition can be handled here. Oh, they got supplements over there. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to have
Hmm.
anybody have to go anywhere else for stuff. Right. Oh, recovery is here too. Cool. Like and so it just everything becomes a revenue stream, but it's kind of like go big or go home, right? Like write me a check, let me do it, and you'll make your money back on interest. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's a certain scale that's required. I mean, I've heard this from multiple people I've spoken to that if they could do it again, they would have gotten a bigger space, right? Like the number of members that you need to really make the math work, it's usually more than you think on the front end.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's two paths, right? And I just read this the other day. It resonated so hard. It's so good. I think you'll like it. Like they said, are you going to be an equipment rental facility or are you going to be a problem solving facility? Because one direction, you become a Planet Fitness and you just rent your equipment out for $10 a month. And it's just a numbers game. You could give a rip whether they come in, what they're doing. Well, that's not our space, right? 100%. And they forget about it and you just keep charging their account every month. Us not being that kind, right? And having no desire to be that kind, I don't even see us going the membership route. I think that's the safe bet, right? That's the scarcity mindset. Like let's just get bodies in the door, right? Like that's not our model first of all. Am I against somebody paying a small monthly fee to come be a meathead in the corner if they want to? Not fundamentally.
Yeah.
But then I think you're trying to fish in two different ponds, right? Like, hey,
Mhm.
hey, we're a private to semi-private facility. You're going to get attention. We're going to check all these boxes for you. If you want a community that's connected, that you're going to be able to do some life together with people. And my wife's group is like a therapy session mixed with training. Like, they all just joke and laugh and have a good time and talk about their kids and their husbands and whatever else, right? Like, and they get workouts in at the same time. So it's like do you want to solve a problem? Do you want your back to quit hurting? Do you want your knee to stop hurting? Like that's what we need to be about and not get fixed into just getting bodies in the door. I've got I think some good ideas coming up for some like get bodies in the door specials, but like you're in a small group training, you're gonna here's a super good discount, pay for the year up front, and try to get some pre-sale before we open, and then everybody wins, right? You sign up for an annual membership, it's going to be X amount discount, put it down now and let's go, right? And then that helps us fund the front end of things while we go slowly recruit one, two, three at a time on the back end. So, I mean, that's a scary marketing strategy because I haven't done it before. I mean, that's coming very soon, like, hey, first 50 in, get this deal, and then it's closed. Maybe we'll do it again next year, the scarcity and providing that opportunity for something we need that could also obviously benefit the clients to get a really good deal coming in.
You mentioned Hormozy earlier in our conversation. Have you ever used or would you ever consider using Gym Launch?
That's like I said, like it goes same thing with the marketing stuff, it's like I need to be the face of it, obviously, but I'm not opposed to like why recreate the wheel, right?
Exactly.
Like I think that's just asinine. Like I don't have that big of an ego. Like you do this better than me, awesome.
Come in, fill up the gym. Let's go.
I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with it because like I know what kind of funding we need right now that we don't have. And
Mhm,
so to
mhm,
add,
mhm.
I don't I know it's not cheap. I don't know what it is, but I know they're guaranteed, right? But they don't come for nothing. So,
That's right. That's right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
if I had disposable income, we'd probably already done it. I don't know where that is from a business mindset because I know like those people of the world be like, yo, you'd find a way to make it work, and they're probably not wrong,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Right
Mhm.
now, I'm trying to find a way to make sure we're operational in 2 weeks when I get kicked out of my other facility because the new tenants are coming in. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it can't be priority one, but Yeah, I mean, all of that. Like, I would love to do that because that takes so much off our plate to go do what we do best, right?
That's right.
And that's not what we do best, right? We do best when you come in our door. So,
Yeah, but it's important. Any shout outs, any charities or religious organizations that you want to highlight for the audience?
oh man, that's good. I hate to say no because it's such like a question. It
It's
should be
clearly a core part of your
a
life
so
and
good
your
question. No, I hate people. So no,
no
no.
good
Like, I
America.
mean, we're like a family business, right? So I mean, just everybody, like our community, like in Celina, Texas, and the surrounding areas, like we've been so blessed by literally this mom talking to this mom talking to this mom. Like we're not surviving. We'd already be out right now if it weren't for people speaking positively and fondly about what we do, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, it's like that. We know where we need to go, but like without our current family of people that are with us right now, that are faithful, that are loyal, that keep paying every month. That's really who. I mean, we were able to grow because of them, obviously. So I mean, just our 289 community, our 289 family is that's got to be it, man. Because yeah, they could go somewhere else, right? They could be doing something else with their time and their money and their resources. So and I know some of them are. It's a strain for them, right? So
yeah. They believe in you and
yeah,
they believe in the service you're providing.
they do, and we're super grateful for it. So that's who gets a shout out, my man. So
Well, shout out Celina, Texas. I'm sure I pronounced it incorrectly at the beginning of our episode, but
yeah,
yeah.
everybody else, yeah. So yeah,
Move
I'm
there.
not from
Sounds
here.
like an amazing place to live.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice. Yeah, it's good. We're supposed to be here. That's what we know. So, yeah.
Well, Wade, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for coming on the Eden Group podcast. This has been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, man. Good to connect with you.
Thank you, sir.